Hello students, today we are going to see the another approach, that is critical approach in social research. So throughout this presentation we are going to study how researchers can go beyond simply just describing society and instead question power or inequality, operation and the other structure that produce them. So students, we are going to see the objective and learning outcome for this particular topic. To understand the critical approach in social research and its role in examining inequality, power and social change. Student, keep this thing in mind that critical research does not simply ask what is happening, but it also asks why is happening, who benefits from the existing system, who is disadvantaged, what form of power are operating, can the situation be changed. So instead of just asking a simple question about or studying the poverty statistics, a critical research might ask why certain groups continuously experiencing poverty and what social or economic like structures maintaining that inequality. Okay, so that we will going to see today. So after this you are able to explain the main feature of critical approach, and you are able to describe how it helps to identify and challenge the social inequality. Okay, now let's understand what critical approach exactly it is. So critical social research does not simply accept society as it is, but it asks the question, why is society organized this way, who benefits from it and who may be disadvantaged. It is especially interested in power, inequality, operation and hidden social processes. Now let's see the first point, that is asking about the question status quo. Status quo means the way things currently are. So critical researchers don't automatically assume that existing systems are fair or natural. Example, suppose a society has very few women in senior political position. A researcher does not simply say that is just how society is. Instead, they ask, why are there fewer women? Are there social, cultural, historical or institutional barriers because of which they are not in political position? So, critical research question what is normally accepted. Understood? Now let's see the second, look beneath the surface. Sometimes what we see on the surface is not the whole story, right? So critical researcher tries to discover the hidden power relationship behind the situations. For example, I'll give you one example, like imagine there is a company and says everyone has an equal opportunity for promotion. They are giving an equal opportunity for everyone for their promotion. Okay, so a critical researcher might investigate who actually gets promoted. Are there hidden biases, those who got promoted? Who makes the decision behind this to these people should get the promoted? And the last one, does social background influence the opportunity that they got promoted? So they look beneath the surface to understand how power and ideology may influence people's life. Now third is challenges accepted knowledge. Student, remember this question. Who decides what counts as knowledge? I'm repeating the question. Who decides what counts as knowledge? So here, critical researcher don't automatically accept knowledge simply because it comes from an institution or government or expert or the textbook. Okay, they ask beyond it. Okay, so example I'm giving you to understand it more, like suppose for many years a government says unemployment is mainly caused by people not waiting to work. Okay, sorry, unemployment is mainly caused by people not wanting to work. A critical researcher might ask, who produced this explanation? What evidence supports it? Does it ignore economic condition or discrimination? So critical research examines how knowledge is produced and whose interests it may serve. And the fourth one, critic is central. Critic means carefully examining, smoothing, and identifying its problems or inequality. Critical research pays particular attention to inequality, discrimination, exploitation, oppression, unequal distribution of power. So, example, if a researcher studies education, they might ask, why do students from some social background have greater educational opportunities than the others? The aim is not simply to describe the inequality, the researcher also tries to understand and challenge the structures producing it. Okay, and the fifth one is talking about no fixed research method. This is very important to understand. Critical research, social research does not say that one particular research method must always be used, but researcher can use a different method such as interview, survey, observation, statistic, historical document, or ethnography for their evidences. Okay, now the last point is ethnography. So what is mean by ethnography? Ethnography is nothing but it is a studying of people, their social world in detail, often by spending a time on observing the things in their environment and interacting with them. Okay, so imagine you want to study the lives of street vendors. So instead of simply just sending them a questionnaire, you might spend several months observing their daily life, daily work, talking to them and understanding their experiences. Okay, with the help of this you may discover many things like how they interact with customers, how they deal with the authorities, how economic conditions affect them, how they organize among themselves, and what challenges they are experiencing. So you have to keep these things in mind, that critical research asks six questions. What question? What is accepted? What is beneath the surface? Who creates this knowledge? Who has power? Which method to be used? What about everyday life? Okay. So critical research studies society by questioning existing structure, knowledge, uncovering the power and equality, critically examining social processes that produce oppressions. Now let's continue with the another subtopic, that is elements of critical social research. Now we come to the seven major elements of critical social research, which identifies as first abstraction, second totality, third essence, fourth praxis, fifth ideology, sixth history, and seven is structure. This is very important to list to remember for the examination. You can remember it as A T E P H I S. So A stand for abstraction and T for totality, E for essence, P for praxis, I for ideology, H for history, S for structure. So now let's continue with our first element, that is abstraction. Abstraction means moving from individual observation towards broader conceptual categories. The presentation describes it as selecting reoccurring or defining features from the observed world and developing an abstract concept. So imagine that a researcher observes many different examples of inequality. Instead of treating every example as completely separate, the researcher looks for common features. For example, unequal access, unequal opportunities, unequal resources. From these observations, the researcher can develop a broader concepts such as social inequality. So, here, observation is identifying the common feature which develop a concept, that is abstraction. Next element is totality. Now, totality means understanding social phenomena as interconnected parts of a larger whole. Okay, so critical research does not want us to study a social problem as if it exists completely interdependently. For example, if we take the example of unemployment, unemployment cannot necessarily be understood only by looking at an individual person. We may need to consider connections with the economy, education, social class, institutions, government policies, history. So everything is interconnected related to unemployment. Okay, so simply we can explain totality is nothing but seeing the whole social system and the relationship between its part. Now next element of critical theory is essence. So essence refers to the fundamental element of an analytical process. Here the researcher tries to move beyond what is immediately visible and identify the fundamental relationship or elements involved in a social process. Now I'll give you the one example for this. If we see repeated inequality, we don't stop at inequality exists. We try to understand the deeper element responsible for that situation. So in simple words, we can say essence is trying to understand what is fundamental beneath the surface phenomenon. So another element is praxis. This is a very important concept. Praxis means what? Practical reflective activity. This presentation will going to give you an explanation that praxis is human activity that can change the world, distinguishes praxis from instinctive or mindless activities. Critical research says knowledge should not remain purely theoretical. If research identifies an oppressive condition, knowledge can contribute to changing that condition. So there is a relationship between knowledge, reflection, action, and it brings the change in the society, that is called as praxis. Very important from exam point of view. For critical social research, knowledge is not only about understanding the world, it is also connected with the changing the world. Now let's understand the another element of critical research is ideology. Ideology has a long history and became particularly important as an analytical concept in the work of Karl Marx and Marxism. This presentation slides will going to give you an understanding of ideology. One approach connects ideology with a worldview, particularly class-based worldviews. Another negative interpretation focuses on how ideas are connected with the material condition in which they are produced. The important point for critical research is ideas do not exist completely separately from social and material condition, as we have already seen what Karl Marx is trying to explain from like how the class and material condition is related to one another. So therefore researchers examine how dominant ideas may be connected with existing social relationship and structure. Now the another element of critical research is structure. A structure consists of a complex set of interrelated and interdependent elements. These elements can only be properly understood in relation to the complete structure. Now think of a society as a system. Institutions, relationships, and social practices are connected. Therefore, if we want to understand one part, we may have to understand how it fits into the wider structure. In simple mean, if we want to understand the structure, so structure is nothing but the interconnected system within which social phenomena operated. Now the last element is history. History is not only simply a list of past events, but it explains history includes both the reconstructed account of past events and the process through which that reconstruction is produced. Now, critical research pays attention to history because present social conditions have its historical roots, which we need to understand. If we want to understand today's present society, we have to connect with the historical roots. Something that exists today may have developed through a long historical process. Therefore, to understand the present, critical researcher may need to ask how did this situation develop and how it changed over a period of time. This gives the researcher a deeper understanding of present social structure. Okay, now students, let's summarize the critical approach. Critical social research does not simply accept society as it appears. It tries to look beneath the surface and understand the power structure, historical processes, ideologies, and social relationships that shape people's lives. It treats knowledge as something that develops through critical examination and connects knowledge with the possibility of social change. In critical theory, there are these 7 elements we should have to remember. The first is abstraction. Meaning of abstraction is moving from observation to broader concepts. Second, totality. Meaning of totality is seeing a social phenomena as interconnected. Fourth, essence. Essence, what is the meaning of essence? Through the critical approach, that is finding the fundamental elements beneath the surface. Next, we are having praxis. Praxis means connecting knowledge, reflection, and action. The another element is ideology. What is mean by ideology over here? Examining how ideas relate to social material conditions. And the history, the next one is history, understanding the historical development of society. And the last element is structure, understanding interconnected social system. So, critical approach means look beneath the surface, question power, understand the structure and history, and connect knowledge with social change. I hope you have understood this topic. So we'll stop here and I will continue the next topic in my next presentation. Thank you.